For a decade, I was the invisible daughter, the quiet spare my parents ignored while they poured everything into my reckless brother. They could not be bothered to attend my graduation, but their silence shattered the moment I received an offer worth $5 million a month. Suddenly, my phone would not stop ringing. They did not want to make amends. They wanted a bailout, and they were prepared to destroy my reputation to get it. The synthetic polyester of the graduation gown trapped the humidity of the late May afternoon against my skin, making the wait unbearable. I sat in the folding chair on the manicured lawn of Redwood Lake University in Briar Glen, Massachusetts, surrounded by students who were mostly 10 years younger than me. They adjusted their caps and laughed with the easy confidence of 22-year-olds who had followed the standard timeline. I was 32. I had crow's feet starting to show at the corners of my eyes, and a full-time job that had required me to finish this degree in the margins of my life. Late at night, fueled by black coffee and a quiet, burning promise I had made to myself. That promise was the only thing keeping my back straight as the dean droned on about future leaders and seizing the day. I had not promised myself success. I had promised myself independence. I had promised that I would no longer be the person waiting for permission to exist. I shifted in my seat, the plastic digging into my spine, and allowed myself one glance toward the guest section. I had reserved 3 seats in row 4. I had sent the tickets 3 months ago. I had emailed the hotel recommendations 6 weeks ago. I had offered to pay for the gas and the dinner. The seats were empty. They were not just empty. They were gaping holes in the crowd, conspicuous interruptions in the sea of proud parents and cheering siblings. To the left of the empty block, a large family was holding up a cardboard sign for a girl named Jessica. To the right, an older couple held hands, weeping softly as they waited for their son's name. In the middle lay the vacuum where Diane and Mark Simmons were supposed to be. I turned my head back to the stage, my throat tight. I told myself I did not care. I told myself I was a 32-year-old analyst and startup operator who managed multi-million-dollar supply chains, not a child looking for mommy and daddy in the audience of a school play. But the logic did not stop the physical ache in my chest. It was the specific, familiar ache of being the spare part. My phone buzzed against my thigh. Hidden beneath the gown, I fished it out, shielding the screen from the glare of the sun. It was a text from my mother. Something came up. Proud of you. 5 words, no apology, no explanation, no request to reschedule. Just a vague dismissal wrapped in a perfunctory compliment. Something came up. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I knew exactly what that phrase meant. In the Simmons household, something usually meant my older brother, Aaron, who at 35 still needed bail money, or a sudden loan for a car he would crash, or emotional support for a breakup he had caused. Aaron was the protagonist of our family narrative. I was the supporting character who was expected to be low maintenance and self-sufficient. Sarah Simmons. The dean called out. I stood up. I walked across the stage. I took the diploma cover. I shook the hand of a man I did not know. I smiled for the professional photographer. And when I looked out into the audience, I did not wave, because there was no one there to catch the gesture. Dinner that evening was a small affair at a bistro called The Hearth, a few miles from campus. It was just me, 2 friends from my cohort named David and Priya, and Dr. Helen Ward. Helen was more than a professor. She was the mentor who had guided me through the darkest parts of my thesis and had helped me land my current role at Orchard and Vale Ventures. She raised her glass of wine, her sharp gray eyes catching the candlelight. To Sarah, Helen said, her voice commanding the table. To the tenacity required to work 60-hour weeks and still graduate with honors. To Sarah. David and Priya echoed, clinking their glasses against mine. Thank you, I said. I tried to infuse the words with genuine gratitude, but I felt hollowed out. The silence from my phone was deafening. My parents had not called. Aaron had not texted. Helen watched me carefully. She set her glass down and leaned forward. I wanted to mention something tonight. Sarah, Helen said, I know you are celebrating, and we usually do not talk shop on nights like this, but the timing is sensitive. I straightened up. switching instinctively into professional mode. What is it? You know that the work you have been doing on the subgrid logistics protocols is theoretically anonymous, Helen said. The project at Orchard and Vale? I nodded. It was confidential work, a proprietary algorithm designed to stabilize supply chains during catastrophic infrastructure failure. I had built the core architecture myself over the last 8 months, often sleeping under my desk. People notice excellence, even when it is redacted. Helen said, I had a conversation yesterday with a contact of mine, a very serious contact. They asked about the architect behind the stability patch. I felt a flicker of anxiety. I signed an NDA. Helen, I cannot discuss the code outside the firm. Helen smiled, and it was a cryptic, tight expression. You do not need to discuss it. The point is that they already know who you are. They track the syntax. My contact represents a group that is looking for exactly that kind of crisis management capability. I frowned. Who are they? I cannot say, Helen said, but if you receive an email in the next 48 hours that seems too good to be true, do not delete it, read it, and get a lawyer. A lawyer? I asked. For a job offer? Helen picked up her wine glass again. For this offer, yes, you will need a lawyer. The dinner wound down, and I went back to my small apartment alone. I took off the cap and gown and threw them over the back of a chair. I checked my phone one last time. Nothing. The next morning, the hangover of disappointment was heavier than the fatigue from the ceremony. I made coffee in my narrow kitchen and opened my phone. A notification popped up from the family group chat. Happy graduation day to our smart girl. What a milestone. My mother had written. She had added 3 balloon emojis. Below it, my father had added, Big day. We should celebrate properly. Then, immediately following the praise, came the hook. Since you are done with school now, you should come home this weekend. My mother wrote, We need a family reset. It has been too long, and we need to talk about the future. I stared at the words. Family reset. It was code. It meant they needed something. It felt transactional, like a bill arriving in the mail disguised as a birthday card. They did not want to celebrate me. They wanted to leverage my new availability. I was typing a non-committal response when a private message came through from my cousin, Jenna. Jenna was the only person in the extended family who saw things clearly, mostly because she lived 3 states away and refused to loan anyone money. Did they tell you why they missed it? Jenna asked. Mom said something came up. I replied, Yeah. Something named Aaron. Jenna wrote back, He threw a launch party last night for that new venture he has been talking about. The dropshipping business or whatever. He rented a venue in town at the last minute because he said the investors needed to see momentum. Aunt Diane and Uncle Mark were there all night. I set the phone down on the counter. My hand was shaking. It was not an emergency. It was not a flat tire. It was a party. They had skipped my college graduation, a culmination of 10 years of struggle, to attend a party for one of Aaron's half-baked business schemes that usually ended with my parents quietly paying off his debts while he moved on to the next big idea. They chose him. Again, I felt a cold, hard stone settle in the pit of my stomach. It was different from the sadness I had felt yesterday. This was clarity. They did not respect my time, my achievements, or my feelings. I was simply the reliable one, the one who would understand, the one who did not need attention. I picked up the phone and deleted the draft I had started to my mother. I did not reply at all. I sat down at my laptop to check my work email, needing the distraction of data and logistics, but there was a new message in my personal inbox, the one I used only for sensitive correspondence. The subject line was blank. The sender was Larkwell Strategic Partners. I froze. Helen's warning echoed in my mind. I opened the email. Ms. Simmons, we have monitored your implementation of the Ether protocols at Orchard and Vale. Your work on autonomous correction during system collapse is singular. We would like to discuss a potential engagement. We are prepared to move immediately. Please join the secure video link below at 10:00 a.m. EST today. Reference code, Blue Vector. I looked at the clock. It was 9:50. Blue Vector was the internal codename I had given the most critical, unstable part of my project. It was not in the documentation. It was not in the official reports. It was a comment I had buried in the source code itself. They had read my raw code. I spent 10 minutes pacing my small living room, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was invasive. It was terrifying. But it was also the first time in my life I felt truly seen for what I could do, rather than what I could give. At 10 o'clock sharp, I clicked the link. The screen did not show a conference room or a corporate logo. It showed a man sitting in a stark, modern office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a skyline I did not recognize. He was older, perhaps 60, with silver hair and a suit that cost more than my student loans. "Ms. Simmons," he said. His voice was calm, deep, and devoid of pleasantries. "I am Graham Edison. I handle talent acquisition for a private consortium that requires your specific skill set." "Mr. Edison," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "you have referenced proprietary work. We have referenced work that saved your current employer 3 times the value of their quarterly revenue." Edison said, "And they do not even know you did it. You patched the vulnerability in their logistics grid before the cascade failure occurred. You did it on a Tuesday night, unprompted, and you never claimed credit." I stayed silent. He was right. "We are not looking for credit seekers," Edison continued. "We are looking for operators who function under extreme pressure. We have a crisis. It is a technological and logistical crisis involving a proprietary product launch that is currently bleeding efficiency. We need someone to step in, take control of the operational flow, and lock it down." "What is the offer?" I asked. I decided to be blunt. If they knew my code, they knew I did not like wasted time. Edison looked down at a paper on his desk, then back at the camera. "The contract is for 12 months. It requires immediate relocation to Harborwick, New York. You will live on the compound. You will have no unauthorized contact with external parties regarding the specifics of the work." He paused. "The compensation is structured as a base retainer and a performance multiplier. The base is $5 million per month." I laughed. It was a sharp, involuntary sound. "I am sorry." I said, "Did you say $5 million? Per month?" Edison repeated. His face did not change. $60 million for the year, plus a 2% equity stake in the product upon successful stabilization. We estimate the equity value at another $40 million. I sat back in my chair. The breath knocked out of me. This was a joke. It had to be a scam. "Why?" I asked. "Why that amount?" "Because, Ms. Simmons, the daily burn rate of the problem you are solving is $20 million. If you fix it, you are a bargain. If you fail, the money will not matter because the firm will not exist." I stared at him. The numbers were astronomical, violent in their magnitude. $5 million a month. 1 month of this job would pay off my parents' mortgage, Aaron's debts, my student loans, and buy me a house in cash. "I need a lawyer," I said. "We expect that," Edison said. "We will send over the preliminary packet. You have 24 hours to sign. If you sign, a car collects you on Monday morning." The screen went black. I sat in the silence of my apartment for a long time. My hands were trembling. $5 million. I grabbed my bag and ran out the door. I needed to see Mara Klein. Mara was a private attorney Helen had recommended, a woman who specialized in high-stakes employment contracts and intellectual property. Her office was in a brick building downtown, smelling of old paper and lemon polish. She read the document I had printed out. She read it once, then she took off her glasses, cleaned them, put them back on, and read it again. "Is it real?" I asked. Mara looked up at me. She looked terrified and impressed at the same time. "It is real, Sarah. The entity behind this is a shell company, but it is backed by sovereign wealth-level capital. I have checked the escrow accounts listed. The money is already there." She flipped a page. "But the terms are aggressive. You are signing away your life for a year. Non-disclosure acts that are bordering on draconian. Immediate relocation. They essentially own your brain for 12 months. If you breach confidentiality, they can sue you for everything you will ever earn." "Can I do it?" I asked. "Legally? You are an at-will employee at Orchard and Vale." Mara said, "You can quit today. There is no non-compete that would hold up against this because the industry is technically different." She leaned forward. "Sarah, listen to me. This creates a level of wealth that is dangerous. It is change your name money. It is people will come out of the woodwork money. If you sign this, you need to insulate yourself." I thought about the empty seats at graduation. I thought about the text message. Something came up. I thought about Aaron's party. Structure it so no one can touch it. I said, "I want it in a trust. I want it locked down. I do not want my family to know a single number." Mara nodded slowly. "Smart. We will set up a blind trust. You will be the sole beneficiary. We will draft a decoy employment contract that shows a reasonable, high five-figure salary in case anyone asks. Do it," I said. I signed the preliminary papers in her office. The ink looked black and permanent when I walked out onto the street. The world looked different. The buildings looked smaller. The problems that had kept me awake for years, rent, car repairs, the cost of health care, had evaporated. I walked to a park bench and sat down. I pulled out my phone. I had a missed call from my mother. Then a text. "Are you coming this weekend? Aaron needs to talk to you about some ideas." I looked at the message. They wanted me to come home so Aaron could pitch me. They wanted to use my new degree to validate his schemes, to maybe co-sign a loan because I now looked respectable to the banks. I opened my social media app. I had not posted anything about graduation yet. I selected a photo a friend had taken of me after the ceremony. It was simple. Me, in the gown, holding the diploma, smiling a tired but genuine smile. No caption about the struggle. No caption about the empty seats. Just the date and the degree. I posted it. Within minutes, the likes started rolling in from friends and classmates. And then, a comment from my mother. "So proud of our baby girl. We are cheering you on." I stared at the comment. To the world. She was the supportive mother. She was claiming the victory she had not bothered to witness. She was performing love for an audience while privately asking when I could come home to service the family needs. I felt a sudden, cold detachment. The anger was gone, replaced by a strategic calculation. They did not know who I was anymore. They did not know what I was worth. And I was going to make sure they never found out until it was too late for them to use it. I replied to her text message, not the comment. "I cannot make it this weekend." I wrote, "I have a new job opportunity. I will be busy." I hit send. Then I watched the typing bubbles appear instantly. They were not used to me saying no. "What kind of opportunity?" She replied, "Just a job." I wrote, "Standard analyst role." But the hours are long. I locked the phone and looked out at the city. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the pavement. I had $5 million a month coming my way. And for the first time in my life, I was absolutely, completely alone. And I liked it. The pen felt heavy in my hand, not because of its weight, but because of the gravity of what I was doing. I sat in the conference room of Mara Klein's office, the air conditioner humming a low, steady note that seemed to vibrate against my ribs. The document in front of me was thick, bound in heavy cream paper, and every page required an initial. It was the preliminary agreement with Larkwell Strategic Partners. It was the bridge between my life as Sarah Simmons, the overlooked analyst, and Sarah Simmons, the asset worth $60 million a year. I signed the final page. The ink dried instantly. Mara took the folder and slid it into a secure envelope. "This is contingent on the final compliance checks." "Sarah," Mara said. Her voice was professional, but her eyes held a flicker of intensity. "They are going to dig deep. They need to ensure you are not a liability. Until the car comes to pick you up, you are in a gray zone. You need to be boring. You need to be invisible. I can be invisible." I said, "I have been practicing that my whole life." The next few days were a surreal exercise in deception. I went to my office at Orchard and Vale Ventures and initiated my exit. I did not tell them I had been poached by a shadow firm. I told my manager, a kind but overworked man named David, that I was taking a sabbatical to focus on independent research. I told him I needed to recharge. He bought it immediately. In his mind, I was the quiet, diligent worker bee who had finally burned out. He even signed a card for me. But while I was successfully fading away at work, my personal life was becoming loud. My phone, which had been silent during my graduation, suddenly began to ring with aggressive frequency. It was my parents. It started with a call on Tuesday morning. "Sarah, honey, it is Mom." My mother's voice chirped through the speaker. I let it go to voicemail. 2 hours later, another call, then a text. "We miss you. The house feels so empty without you visiting. When are you coming down?" By Wednesday. My father was calling. "Pick up, Sarah. We need to help you plan your next steps. We know transitions are hard." I stared at the screen. Transitions are hard. The phrase was patronizing, designed to make me feel small and incapable. They did not know I had signed a contract that paid more in a month than they would earn in 10 lifetimes. They assumed I was unemployed, adrift, and therefore malleable. I finally answered on Thursday evening. "Hello, Mom," I said, keeping my voice flat. "Sarah," she exclaimed, "you sound tired. Are you okay? You know, there is no shame in coming home for a few months. We can set up the guest room. We can help you get back on your feet." "I am on my feet. Mom," I said, "I am fine. Are you?" she asked, her tone dropping into a rehearsed whisper of concern. "We saw your post. You looked lonely, and we heard you left your job. That is a big step. We just want to make sure you are not making impulsive decisions." I tightened my grip on the phone. They were fishing. They wanted me under their roof, where they could see my bank statements and guilt me into writing checks for Aaron. "I'm not moving home," I said. My father's voice suddenly boomed in the background. "Tell her I want to take her to dinner," he said. My mother repeated the offer. "Dad wants to treat you. Just a nice dinner. No pressure. Come down to Cresthaven on Friday. We will go to Maple and Ash." I hesitated. Maple and Ash was the most expensive steakhouse in our hometown. My father only went there when he was trying to impress a client or apologize for something colossal. "If I go," I said, "will you stop calling me 5 times a day? We are just loving you." "Sarah," my mother said, "but yes, come to dinner." I drove to Cresthaven on Friday evening. The drive took 2 hours, and I spent every minute of it rehearsing my answers. I would be vague. I would be boring. I would be the gray rock that gave them no emotional leverage. Maple and Ash was dimly lit, smelling of truffle oil and expensive cologne. I saw my father sitting in a booth near the back. He was wearing his good suit, the one he wore to weddings and funerals. He stood up when I approached. He smiled, a wide, teeth-baring expression that did not reach his eyes. "Sarah," he said, "look at you, the graduate." He hugged me. It felt stiff, like hugging a mannequin. "Sit, sit," he said. "I ordered the Cabernet you like." I sat down. He poured the wine himself, his hand shaking slightly. I noticed he was watching me, his eyes darting over my face, looking for clues. "So," he started, leaning in, "you quit Orchard and Vale." I resigned. I corrected him. "I am looking into consulting." "Consulting?" he repeated. "That can be lucrative, or it can be unemployment in disguise. Which is it?" I took a sip of water. "I am doing fine. Dad, I have some prospects." He swirled his wine. "You know, Aaron has some prospects too, big ones. He just needs a little runway. We were thinking, since you do not have a 9-to-5 anymore, maybe you could help him look over his business plan. You have the degree now. You could be an asset to the family business." There was no family business. There was just a series of Aaron's bad decisions funded by my parents' retirement savings. "I am not interested in Aaron's business," I said calmly. My father's jaw tightened. "He is your brother. Success means nothing if you leave your family behind." "Sarah," I was about to respond when a shadow fell over the table. "Well, look who it is," a voice said. I looked up. Aaron was standing there. He was wearing a leather jacket that looked brand new and a grin that looked practiced. He had not been invited. At least, not by me. I thought it was just us. "Dad," I said. My father shrugged, feigning surprise. I might have mentioned where we were going. "Sit down, son." Aaron slid into the booth next to me, trapping me against the wall. He smelled of musky cologne and tobacco. "Congrats on the paper, sis," Aaron said. He reached for the wine bottle and poured himself a glass without asking. "So, I hear you are a free agent now. I am busy." "Aaron," I said. He laughed. "Too busy for family? Come on, I saw your LinkedIn. You scrubbed it. That usually means someone is either fired or hired for something huge. Which is it?" He turned his head and looked down at my phone, which was sitting face up on the table. "Who is texting you?" he asked. I flipped the phone over instantly. It was a reflex. "Nobody," I said. Aaron's eyes narrowed. "You are jumpy. You got a secret boyfriend? Or a secret bank account?" My father chuckled, but the sound was dry. "Sarah has always been secretive. Remember when she applied to college without telling us?" They both laughed. It was a sound of shared history, a history where I was the outsider who did things wrong because I did things alone. I felt a vibration against the table. My phone again. Aaron's eyes flicked to it. "I think you should check that," Aaron said. "Might be important." "I am not checking it," I said. I signaled the waiter. "I would like the check, please." "We have not even ordered food," my father said, his voice dropping the warmth. "I am not hungry," I said. "I came because you said you wanted to see me. You have seen me. Now I am going." I stood up, forcing Aaron to slide out of the booth. He did it slowly, deliberately, taking up space. "You are acting strange." "Sarah," Aaron said, "you are acting like you think you are better than us." I grabbed my purse. "I do not think I am better." "Aaron, I just think I am done." I walked out of the restaurant without looking back. I could feel their eyes on my back, burning holes in my jacket. They had not gotten what they wanted. They had not gotten a commitment, a check, or a confession. They had just verified that I was hiding something. The backlash began 3 days later. I was back in my apartment, packing the last of my books into boxes, when my cousin Jenna called me. "Sarah, you need to know what Aunt Diane is saying." Jenna said. She sounded breathless. "What is she saying?" I asked. "She is telling everyone you are having a mental breakdown," Jenna said. "She called my mom this morning. She said you quit your job with no plan, that you looked manic at dinner, and that you are refusing family help. She is using the word unstable." I closed my eyes. It was a classic move. If they could not control the narrative, they would destroy the credibility of the protagonist. If I tried to set boundaries now, everyone would view it through the lens of my alleged instability. "She is telling people she is worried you might hurt yourself financially," Jenna continued. "She is saying the family might need to step in and seek guardianship or something if you spiral again." "Guardianship?" I asked. "I am 32 years old. She is planting seeds." "Sarah," Jenna warned, "she is making sure that if you do succeed, people will think they saved you, and if you fail, people will say they tried to help. Thank you for telling me." "Jenna," I said. I hung up. My anger was a cold, sharp thing in my chest. They were not just greedy. They were willing to dismantle my reputation to keep me in line. Then, the second blow landed. My phone pinged with a notification from my banking app. It was a security alert. "New credit inquiry detected. First National Bank of Briar Glen." I froze. I had not applied for credit. I had locked down my main accounts. But I had forgotten about the old credit monitoring service I had signed up for in college. I opened the details. It was a soft pull, the kind that happens when someone is checking to see if you qualify for a loan. The address associated with the application was not my apartment. It was 14 Oak Lane, Cresthaven, my parents' house. I called Mara immediately. "Mara, someone is trying to open a line of credit in my name using my parents' address." I said, "I am on it." Mara said, her voice crisp and efficient. "Send me the screenshot. I will trace the origin." She called me back 20 minutes later. "It was an online application." Mara said, "The IP address resolves to a residential connection in Cresthaven. Sarah, they used your social security number. They tried to open a $50,000 personal loan." My stomach turned. It was not just a violation. It was a felony. "What do I do?" I asked. "We block it," Mara said, But you need to confront them. You need to hear them deny it so we can document the lie. Can you record the call? Massachusetts is a two-party consent state, so you have to tell them. Or you have to be in New York. I am in New York. I lied. I was technically still in Massachusetts, packing. But I would drive across the state line if I had to. I drove to the border, parked in a rest stop, and dialed my father's number. He answered on the second ring. "Sarah," he said, "we were just talking about you." "Dad, did you or Mom try to open a loan in my name today?" I asked. I kept my voice gentle, giving them one tiny window to be honest. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they were confused. There was a silence on the line. A long, heavy silence. "Excuse me?" he said. "I received a credit alert." I said, "An application for $50,000. It used your address." "How dare you?" he snapped. His voice went from 0 to furious in a second. "You call your mother and me, after we raised you, after we paid for your clothes and your food for 18 years, and you accuse us of theft? I am not accusing. Dad, I am asking. It is insulting," he shouted. "Maybe you opened it and forgot. Your mother says you are not thinking clearly lately. Maybe you are the one who is confused." He was gaslighting me. He was pivoting to the narrative they had planted. "So you deny it?" I asked. "Absolutely," he said. "And frankly, Sarah, I am worried about your paranoia. This money obsession you have, it is not healthy." I hung up. He had denied it, but the guilt was dripping off his defensiveness. People who are innocent say, "That is strange. Let's figure it out." People who are guilty say, "How dare you accuse me?" The next morning, a courier arrived at my apartment. He handed me a package and waited until I signed for it on a digital pad. Inside was a new phone. It was a sleek, matte black device with no branding. There was a note typed on heavy cardstock. "Ms. Simmons, we have detected increased chatter on your perimeter. Please use this device for all future communication. Do not use your old number. Do not connect this device to public Wi-Fi. Graham Edison." I turned on the phone. It was already activated. There was one contact saved. "Graham." I pressed the call button. "Mr. Edison?" I said. "Sarah." Graham's voice came through, clear and encrypted. "We need to accelerate your extraction. The noise around you is getting loud." "What noise?" I asked. "We monitor threat levels for our assets," Graham said. "We have picked up inquiries into your background from a local level. Someone is asking questions about your financial status and your employment history." "Who?" I asked. "The inquiries originated from a terminal at the Cresthaven County Clerk's office," Graham said, "and from a small law firm called Miller and Haynes." I felt the blood drain from my face. Miller and Haynes, that was where Tessa Morrow worked. Aaron's girlfriend. She is an admin there. I said, "Tessa." Graham hummed. "That explains it. She likely saw a flag when we pulled your records for the background check, or she ran a search herself. Either way, the leak is inside your circle." "She knows?" I asked. "She knows something is happening," Graham said. "She likely does not know the number, but she knows the scale. People talk, Sarah, and when people smell money, they get desperate." I realized then that the dinner, the sudden interest, the rumors, it all stemmed from Tessa. She had seen a document, maybe a credit check from a high-level firm, and she had told Aaron, "Sarah has money coming." Graham continued, "We are sending a team to sweep your apartment for listening devices, just in case, and we are moving your pickup to tomorrow morning. Can you be ready?" "Yes," I said. "Good. And Sarah?" "Yes. Warning shots are over. If they escalate, we escalate. But for now, you need to disappear." I hung up the secure phone. I stood in the middle of my living room. I looked at the boxes. I looked at the graduation photo on the mantelpiece, the one where I was smiling alone. I sat down at my laptop and opened the portal for the credit bureaus. I initiated a total freeze on my credit. No one, not even me, could open a new account without a 7-digit PIN code and a voice verification. Then I went to the post office website. I set up a mail forwarding service to a blind P.O. box in a state I did not live in, which would then forward to Mara's office. I was erasing myself. I took out a piece of stationery. I wrote a note to my parents. I did not text it. I did not email it. I wrote it by hand because I wanted them to hold the paper and know I had touched it. Mom and Dad, I know about the loan application. I know about the rumors you are spreading to my friends and family. I know that you know I have an opportunity. Here is the new reality. I am gone. Do not look for me. Do not call my friends. Do not come to my apartment. If you try to use my identity again, I will not treat it as a family misunderstanding. I will treat it as a crime. I wanted to share my success with you. You chose to try and steal it instead. Sarah. I sealed the envelope. I put a stamp on it. I walked down to the blue mailbox on the corner and dropped it in. The metal clang of the mailbox door shutting sounded like a gavel coming down. I walked back to my apartment, locked the door, and waited for the dawn. I was done being the daughter. I was now the asset, and I would protect myself with the same ruthlessness they had used to exploit me. Harborwick, New York, was less a town and more a fortress disguised as a coastal hamlet. It was 2 hours north of the city, wrapped in gray mist and money that whispered rather than shouted. The streets were lined with slate-roofed houses that looked historic, but were retrofitted with state-of-the-art security systems. It was the perfect place to disappear. I had been there for 4 days. Larkwell had set me up in a transitional apartment while the main compound was being prepared for my arrival. The apartment was stark, modern, and beautiful in a way that felt entirely impersonal. It had white oak floors, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the choppy Atlantic, and furniture that looked like it had never been sat on. I spent my days in the home office, syncing with the Larkwell servers, reviewing the chaotic code of the project I was hired to save. It was grueling mental work, the kind that made my brain hum with static by 5 o'clock, but I loved it. It was clean. It was logical. Code did not lie to you. Code did not skip your graduation and then ask for a loan. I had not spoken to my parents since I mailed the letter. I assumed the silence was them processing the shock, or perhaps Mara's legal team had scared them into submission. I let myself believe that I had won the first round. That distance was a shield they could not penetrate. I was wrong. On a Tuesday afternoon, a rainy, blustery day that rattled the window panes, the buzzer to my apartment rang. I froze. I was not expecting a delivery. I was not expecting anyone. The building had a doorman, a security protocol. No one just came up. I walked to the intercom panel on the wall. The video feed flickered to life. Standing in the vestibule, shaking rain off a cheap umbrella, was my mother. Beside her, looking grim and determined in a beige trench coat, was my father. My heart hammered against my ribs, a physical blow of panic. How did they find me? I had scrubbed my digital footprint. I had changed my number. I had used a forwarding service. I pressed the talk button. "What are you doing here?" I asked. My voice sounded thin in the empty apartment. Diane looked up at the camera, her face arranging itself instantly into a mask of cheerful surprise. "Sarah, oh, thank goodness. The doorman was so difficult. But we told him it was a family emergency surprise. Let us up. Honey, it is freezing out here." I stared at the screen. I should have told them to leave. I should have called security. But the conditioning of 3 decades is a heavy chain to break. They were my parents. They were standing in the rain. I buzzed them in. By the time I opened the apartment door, they were already in the hallway, shaking off the water. My mother rushed forward, ignoring my stiffness, and wrapped me in a damp, suffocating hug. "We found you!" she exclaimed, pulling back to look at me. "You are so hard to track down, Sarah." "Like a secret agent." She laughed, but her eyes were scanning the room behind me, calculating the square footage, assessing the furniture. My father walked in behind her. He did not hug me. He looked around the apartment with a critical sneer that masked his awe. "Nice place," he said. "A bit cold, but expensive. How did you find me?" I asked again. I did not move from the doorway. I kept my hand on the handle. My mother waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, you know Aaron. He is so clever with computers. He found a receipt or something linked to a corporate housing account. We just wanted to surprise you." She walked past me into the living room and sat down on the white sofa without asking. She patted the cushion beside her. Come sit, Sarah. We have so much to talk about. And look, we brought ideas. She reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a thick sheaf of papers. They were printed listings from Zillow and various real estate websites. What is this? I asked, remaining standing. My father sat down in the armchair opposite her. He looked at me with a heavy, serious expression. We know you are in transition. Sarah, he said, we know this job is a big deal, but living alone in a place like this? It is isolating. It is not healthy for a young woman. So we thought, my mother interrupted, her voice bright and breathless, that since you have the means now, and we are all looking for a fresh start, we should look for a place together. I blinked. Together? Yes, she said. Look at this one. It is a 6-bedroom estate just 10 minutes from here. It has a guest cottage for Aaron, a master suite for us, and a whole wing for you and your work. We could all be together again, like a real family. I looked at the listings. They were mansions, multi-million-dollar estates that required upkeep, staff, and taxes that would bleed a normal salary dry. I am not living with you. I said, I moved here for work, alone. My mother's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. She reached into her bag again and pulled out a blue folder. We knew you would be hesitant, she said. You have always been independent. That is why we had a friend of ours, a very smart mediator. Draft this up. It is a way to make everyone feel secure. She held the folder out to me. I took it. The cover page read, Simmons Family Stewardship Agreement. I opened it. It was a contract. It was poorly drafted, likely by an online template or a paralegal friend. But the terms were clear. It proposed a monthly stipend paid by me to the household account in exchange for familial support, emotional guidance, and the management of domestic affairs. It was a bill. They were billing me for being my parents. I read the number on the second page. They wanted $50,000 a month. I looked up at them. The paper shook slightly in my hand. You want me to pay you to live with me? I asked. It is not payment. Sarah, my father said sharply, it is a contribution. You are coming into a lot of money. We sacrificed everything to get you here. It is only right that the family rises together. I closed the folder and tossed it onto the coffee table. No, I said. My mother looked stricken. Sarah, please, read the whole thing. It includes provisions for us to cook for you, to handle your laundry. I am 32. I said, I do not need you to do my laundry. I need you to respect my no. My father stood up. His presence filled the room. A looming thread of paternal disapproval that used to make me cower. You are being selfish. Sarah, he said. His voice was low, dangerous. We know about the offer. The air in the room stopped moving. What did you say? I asked. We know, he repeated. Tessa saw the inquiry. We know the numbers. $5 million a month. Do not try to deny it. He took a step toward me. You are making $60 million this year, and you are acting like giving your family a crumb is a tragedy. It is disgusting. You are humiliating us. I am humiliating you? I asked, my voice rising for the first time. You skipped my graduation to go to a party. You tried to take out a loan in my name. And now you show up at my door with a contract to monetize our relationship? We are trying to protect you, my mother cried out. She stood up, tears instantly welling in her eyes. There were always tears when she needed to win. You are not ready for this kind of money. Sarah, you will be taken advantage of. Strangers will come for you. We are the only ones who truly love you. You do not love me. I said. I felt a cold clarity wash over me. You love the asset. You love the potential. Get out, I said. My father's face turned a mottled red. If you throw us out, Sarah, you are done. We will not be there when you crash. And you will crash. Get out, I repeated. I walked to the door and held it open. They gathered their things. My mother sobbed loudly. A theatrical performance meant for an audience of one. My father glared at me with pure venom. As he passed me, he paused. You owe us, he hissed. You owe us for every meal, every ride to school, every roof we put over your head. This is not over. I slammed the door behind them and locked the deadbolt. Then I leaned against the wood and slid down to the floor. I did not cry. I was shaking, but not from sadness. I was shaking from the adrenaline of a soldier who had just repelled an ambush. The retaliation was swift and calculated. It started the next morning. My phone, the old one I kept only for monitoring, lit up with messages from relatives I had not spoken to in years. "Sarah, your mom called me in tears. She said you screamed at them and threw them out on the street?" Wrote my Aunt Linda. "I thought you were a good Christian girl." Sarah, "Honor thy father and mother," wrote a cousin I had last seen at a funeral 5 years ago. Then came the social media post. My mother posted a long, vague status update on Facebook. It did not name me, but it did not have to. Heartbroken today. It is so painful when a child loses their way. We tried to help, but sometimes money changes people. We are praying for our daughter to find her moral compass again. Watch out for shady companies that isolate young women from their families. Family First Pray for Sarah. It had 60 likes and 20 comments of support within an hour. I sat in my office, watching the notifications roll in. They were painting a narrative where I was the unstable, brainwashed victim, and they were the loving saviors. It was a preemptive strike. If I tried to tell the truth later, I would look like the villain they had already described. But the social pressure was just the smoke. The fire was elsewhere. At noon, I received a call on my secure Larkwell phone. It was Mara Klein. "Sarah, we have a problem," Mara said. Her voice was tight. "Did they file something?" I asked. "Worse," Mara said. "I just got off the phone with Larkwell's legal department. Your parents tried to contact the payroll administrator at Larkwell this morning. I felt the blood drain from my face. They called Larkwell?" "Yes," Mara said. "They claim to be your authorized power of attorney representatives. They told the payroll clerk that you were in the middle of a medical crisis and that the deposit routing needed to be changed to a family trust account." I gripped the phone. "Did they change it?" "No," Mara said. "Larkwell's security is too tight for that. They flagged the request and denied it. But Sarah, this is fraud. Attempted wire fraud. And it spooked Larkwell. They do not like messy assets." I hung up with Mara and immediately called Graham Edison. He picked up on the first ring. "I assume Mara told you." Graham said. He did not sound angry. He sounded tired. "I am sorry, Graham," I said. "I did not know they would go this far. We deal with interference." "Sarah," Graham said, "but this is aggressive. They are not just asking for money. They are attempting to impersonate you to divert corporate funds. That makes them a security threat." He paused. "I need you to understand the position this puts us in. We are a shadow firm. We rely on discretion. If your family drags this into a public court, or if they continue to harass our financial department, the partners will reassess your contract. We cannot have a liability managing a crisis. I understand." I said, "You are the best operator I've seen in 10 years. Graham said, "Do not let them sink you. Handle it." "I will," I said. I sat in the silence of my office. Handle it. I needed to understand why. Greed was a powerful motivator, but this level of desperation, the identity theft, the wire fraud attempt, the invasion of my home, spoke of something else. They were acting like people who were running out of time. I opened my laptop. I did not look at code this time. I looked at public records. I paid the $50 fee to access the county clerk's database for Cresthaven. I ran a search on my parents' names. The results populated the screen, and the story unfolded in black and white legal text. There was a lien filed against 14 Oak Lane 3 weeks ago. The claimant was East Briar Lending. The amount was $400,000. I frowned. My parents had paid off their mortgage years ago. Why did they owe nearly $500,000 to a hard money lender? I dug deeper. I searched for Aaron's name. 2 lawsuits, both filed in the last 6 months. One for breach of contract, one for unpaid vendor services related to a company called Simmons Ventures, LLC. I pieced it together. The launch party, the momentum. I picked up my phone and dialed Aaron. He answered, sounding out of breath. "What do you want?" Sarah, he snapped, Mom is a wreck. By the way, you really did a number on her. Cut the crap. Aaron, I said, I am looking at the lien on the house. There was a silence. A long, terrified silence. You found that? Aaron asked. His voice lost all its bravado. East Briar Lending. I read, $400,000 and 2 lawsuits against your company. Sarah, listen. Aaron stammered. It is not what it looks like. It was a bridge loan. I just needed capital to get the inventory for the dropshipping business. It was a sure thing. You mortgaged Mom and Dad's house? I asked. They agreed to it, Aaron shouted. Defensive now. They believed in me. Unlike you, they signed the papers. We thought the business would turn a profit by month 3, and we would pay it back before anyone knew. But it did not turn a profit. Did it? I asked. The market shifted, Aaron cried. It wasn't my fault. And now the interest is compounding, and East Briar is threatening to foreclose, and, Sarah, you have to help us. He broke down. I heard the real Aaron then, not the charming entrepreneur, but the scared boy who had never been told no. If we lose the house, it kills Dad. Aaron sobbed. It will kill him. You have 60 million coming. You can write a check today and it all goes away. Please, I did it for all of us. I wanted to be the one to make us rich. For all of us. I repeated. That was the lie that held the family together. The idea that Aaron's success was our collective victory, while my success was a resource to be harvested. I hung up on him. I sat there, staring at the rain hitting the glass. The conflict tore at me. It would be so easy to write the check. Graham was right. I made $5 million a month. $400,000 was nothing to me now. I could save the house. I could silence the drama. I could be the hero. But if I paid it, I was validating the lie. I was teaching them that fraud works. I was teaching them that no matter how much they abused me, my checkbook was open. I did not want revenge. I did not want to see them homeless, but I refused to be the bailout plan disguised as a daughter. I opened my email client. I composed a new message. To Diane Simmons, Mark Simmons, Aaron Simmons. Subject: Notice of boundaries and legal action. I typed steadily, my fingers flying across the keys. I did not use emotional language. I used the language of the contract they had tried to force on me, to my family. I am aware of the lien on the house held by East Briar Lending. I am aware of the lawsuits against Aaron's business. I am aware of the attempt to fraudulently redirect my payroll at Larkwell. Here are my terms. 1. I will not pay off the lien. I will not pay Aaron's legal fees. Do not ask again. 2. Any further contact with my employer, my colleagues, or my bank will be met with an immediate filing of criminal charges for identity theft and wire fraud. My attorney has the evidence ready to file. 3. I will communicate only via email. Do not come to my home. Do not call my phone. 4. If you continue the public smear campaign on social media, I will release the documentation proving the attempted fraud to the same relatives you are lying to. I want a relationship with my parents, but I will not have a relationship with people who view me as a financial instrument. Sarah. I read it over. It was harsh. It was final. It was the wall I should have built 10 years ago. I hit send. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. My computer pinged. A reply from my mother. I opened it. There was no subject line. The body of the email contained a single word. Unforgivable. I stared at the word. It was a curse. It was a severance. I closed the laptop. I stood up and walked to the window. The rain was stopping. The gray clouds breaking apart to reveal a sliver of cold, blue sky. I was alone in a big, empty apartment in a town of strangers. My family had just declared me unforgivable because I refused to be robbed. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the filtered air of my expensive fortress. It hurt. It hurt like a physical wound. But as I watched the waves crash against the rocks below, I realized something else. I was free. The courier envelope that arrived on Thursday morning was not from Larkwell. It was heavy, textured bond paper, the kind used by law firms that want to project an authority they do not actually possess. The return address read, Claremont and Pierce, Attorneys at Law. I sat at my kitchen island in Harborwick, the gray light of the ocean filtering through the glass, and sliced it open. The cover letter was a masterpiece of legal absurdity. It was addressed to me, but the tone was entirely my father's voice filtered through a thesaurus. Dear Ms. Simmons, we represent your parents, Mark and Diane Simmons, regarding the outstanding financial obligations incurred during your minority and early adulthood. It has come to our attention that you have entered into a lucrative employment agreement. As such, our clients are formally requesting reimbursement for educational funding, room and board provided post-majority, and incidental expenses totaling $180,000. I read the next paragraph, and my jaw tightened. Furthermore, we are seeking damages for familial alienation and emotional distress caused by your abrupt and hostile abandonment of the family unit. We are prepared to settle this matter privately for a lump sum payment of $300,000. It was a ransom note. They were trying to bill me for raising me. I scanned the document again. Claremont and Pierce. I looked them up on my phone. They were a strip mall firm in the next county over, specializing in personal injury and estate disputes. They were ambulance chasers who had likely taken a retainer from my father to scare me. I took a photo of the letter and sent it to Mara. She called me 3 minutes later. This is a joke, right? Mara said. Her voice was sharp with disbelief. It is not a joke to them. I said, they are trying to scare me into writing a check to make them go away. They are claiming family damages. Mara said, and I could hear her typing furiously. Sarah, there is no such cause of action in New York or Massachusetts. You cannot sue your daughter for being mean to you. This is a shakedown. Ignore it? I asked. No, Mara said. We respond. But we respond with teeth. I am going to send a formal request for evidence. If they claim they loaned you money for education, I want to see the promissory notes. I want to see the bank transfers. I want to see the receipts. They will not have them, I said, because they never paid for my college. I had scholarships and loans. Exactly, Mara said. Let's make them work for their extortion. 2 days later, the retaliation shifted from the legal to the digital, and it was far more damaging than a frivolous letter. I was working on a patch for the Larkwell logistics node when Graham pinged me on the secure server. Sarah, check this link. We need to discuss. I clicked the link. It was a post on the Venture Grid, a mid-tier business blog that covered tech rumors. The headline read, Orchard and Vale analyst jumps ship to mystery firm. Did she take the code with her? My stomach dropped. The article was vague, citing industry insiders, but it mentioned me by name. It speculated that my sudden departure from Orchard and Vale was suspicious and linked to a proprietary algorithm that had gone missing. But it was the comment section that made my blood run cold. An anonymous user named TruthTeller88 had posted a long, detailed comment. I worked with Sarah Simmons. She is brilliant but unstable. She has a history of taking credit for team efforts. It is well known she felt underappreciated and felt the company owed her. It is not surprising she would sell out to the highest bidder, even if it meant betraying the people who supported her from the start. I stared at the screen, betraying the people who supported her. That was not corporate speak. That was my mother. That was the exact phrase she had used when I refused to sign the family contract. After all the support we gave you, they were feeding information to the blog, or more likely, Aaron spent his life online. He knew how to plant a rumor. They were weaponizing my professional reputation to force me back into the fold. If I lost the Larkwell deal, I would be vulnerable again. I would be the failure they needed me to be. I called Graham. It is a lie. I said immediately. I did not take a single line of code from Orchard and Vale. You checked my drive. You know that. I know that, Graham said. His voice was calm but icy. But perception matters. Sarah, we operate in the shadows, but we rely on the integrity of our assets. If you become radioactive, if you become the girl who steals IP, we cannot use you in public-facing negotiations. What do you want me to do? I asked. I want you to kill the noise, Graham said. Whatever leverage they think they have, you need to neutralize it. We are drafting a cease and desist for the blog. But the source is your problem. Fix it. I needed proof. I could not fight rumors with denials. I needed hard documentation. And I knew where to find it. 6 years ago. When I first moved out of my parents' house after a particularly brutal argument about money, I had rented a small storage unit in Cresthaven. I had moved my most personal boxes there. Old tax returns, scholarship letters, bank statements from my college years. I had kept the unit even when I moved to Boston, a paranoid instinct telling me I might need a backup plan one day. I rented a nondescript sedan and drove south. I arrived in Cresthaven just as the sun was setting, painting the suburban streets in a bruising purple light. I wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, feeling ridiculous, like a character in a bad spy movie. The storage facility was called Secure Keep, a row of rusted orange metal doors behind a chain-link fence. I punched in my code. The gate rattled open. My unit was small, 5 by 5 feet. It smelled of dust and old cardboard. I pulled the chain on the single bulb and started digging. I found the box marked Financials, 2015 to 2020. I sat on the concrete floor and opened it. Inside were the receipts of my independence. The student loan applications signed only by me. The tuition payments made from my work-study account. The letters from the financial aid office stating that my family contribution was 0. This was the shield against their lies. I was photographing a document when I heard gravel crunching outside. I froze. I reached up and clicked off the light. A car door slammed, then footsteps. "Sarah?" a voice called out. I stopped breathing. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't Erin. It was my Aunt Joanne. I hesitated, then pulled the chain. The light flickered back on. I stepped out of the unit. Joanne Reddick was standing by her Honda Civic, holding a reusable grocery bag. She looked older than I remembered, her face lined with fatigue, but her eyes were kind. She was my mother's younger sister, the one who always stayed quiet at Thanksgiving dinners. "How did you know I was here?" I asked. "I saw the gate code log," Joanne said. I stared at her. "I work in the front office part-time now," she explained, "since Uncle Jerry passed. I saw the name Simmons pop up on the entry log. I figured it had to be you. Mark and Diane do not keep things in storage. They just buy new things." I relaxed slightly, but I kept my distance. "Are you going to call them?" Joanne shook her head. She walked over and leaned against the door frame of the unit. "No," she said. "I am not calling them. I am tired." "Sarah?" "Tired of what?" I asked. "Tired of the story," she said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thermos. "Your mother has been telling the family for 10 years that you are difficult," Joanne said. "That you are ungrateful, that they paid for everything and you just took and took." "I know," I said. I felt the familiar burn of injustice. "I never bought it," Joanne said. "I saw you working 3 jobs in college. I saw you driving that beat-up car while Erin drove a new truck. But it is easier to stay quiet in this family than to fight Diane. She destroys people who fight her." She looked at me, her expression serious. "But what they are doing now? The lawsuits? The smear campaign? It is too much. I cannot watch it anymore." Joanne looked around to make sure we were truly alone, then lowered her voice. "There is something you need to know. Sarah, something about the business." "Which business?" I asked. "Erin's dropshipping scheme?" "No," Joanne said. "The shell company, Simmons Home Services, LLC? I frowned. "I never heard of it. You were not supposed to." Joanne said, "Mark and Diane opened it 5 years ago. They took out a business loan for $200,000. They told the bank it was for flipping houses. They never flipped a house in their lives." I said, "Exactly," Joanne said. "They funneled every cent of that loan into Erin's crypto trading phase. And when that vanished, they refinanced. They have been moving debt around like shells in a game for years, hoping Erin would hit a jackpot and pay it all back before the music stopped. But the music stopped," I said. "That is why they are desperate." Joanne nodded. "But that is not the worst part." She hesitated, looking pained. "When they refinanced the last time, About 18 months ago, the bank required a secondary guarantor, someone with a clean credit history and a steady income. Mark's credit was shot. Diane's was maxed out. My stomach turned over. "Joanne," I whispered, "tell me they didn't. I saw the papers on your father's desk when I was helping them organize for tax season." Joanne said, "Your name is on the guarantor line." "Sarah." I leaned back against the cold metal wall of the storage unit. The world tilted slightly. "They forged my signature?" I asked. Joanne nodded. "And not just for the LLC. I think they used your information to secure the extension on the house lien, too. That is why they are so terrified of you talking to East Briar Lending. If you walk into that bank, you are not just a daughter refusing to pay. You are the evidence of a felony." I closed my eyes. It wasn't just greed. It was survival. They had committed crimes to keep Aaron afloat. And now that the walls were closing in, they needed me to cover the crimes with my new money. If I paid the debt, the fraud would be buried. If I didn't, they would go to prison. "Thank you, Joanne," I said. Joanne reached out and squeezed my arm. "Be careful. Sarah, a drowning man will climb on top of you to breathe. They are drowning." I did not go back to Harborwick. I drove to a motel on the outskirts of Cresthaven. I scanned every document I had found in the storage unit and emailed them to Mara. Then I called her. "Mara," I said, "I need you to pull the loan documents from East Briar Lending. Today. I am already on it." Mara said. The response from Claremont and Pierce came in. They sent proof of their support. She let out a dry, humorless laugh. "Sarah, they sent screenshots of bank transfers, but the metadata is all wrong, and the font on the dates doesn't match the font on the bank logo. They doctored them. They are literally manufacturing a paper trail to show they paid for your tuition. They are desperate," I said, "and I know why. They forged my signature as a guarantor on their business loans." Mara went silent. "If that is true," Mara said slowly, "the strategy changes. We are not fighting a civil dispute anymore. This is criminal identity theft. If we prove this, your parents are looking at jail time." I stared at the motel wall. The beige wallpaper was peeling in the corner. "I do not want to put them in jail. Mara, I just want them to stop." "Sarah," Mara said gently, "you might not have a choice. If your name is on that debt, you are liable for it unless you prove fraud. You cannot just walk away. You either pay the $500,000 they owe, or you file a police report stating that your parents committed forgery. There is no middle ground. The weight of the choice pressed down on me. Pay the ransom, or destroy the family. I made the choice. "File the report," I said. The next morning, I walked into the main branch of East Briar Lending. I was wearing a tailored suit, looking every inch the high-powered consultant I was supposed to be. I carried a leather portfolio containing my real signature samples, my passport, and the affidavit Mara had drafted overnight. I asked to see the branch manager. When I laid the documents out on the mahogany desk, the manager, a sweating man named Mr. Henderson, looked pale. "Ms. Simmons," he said, looking at the loan agreement I had placed in front of him. "You are saying you did not sign this?" "I was in Chicago on the date this was signed," I said, sliding a plane ticket across the desk. "And as you can see, this signature loops the S at the bottom. I have not signed my name that way since I was 17. Mr. Henderson wiped his forehead. "If this is true, this is a very serious internal matter. We will need to freeze the accounts associated with this collateral." "Do it," I said. "And I want a formal letter stating that I have contested this debt due to identity theft. I need it for the credit bureaus." He typed something into his computer. "I will initiate the fraud protocol, but Ms. Simmons, this will trigger an immediate default notice to the primary borrowers, your parents." "I know," I said. I walked out of the bank into the bright, harsh sunlight of the parking lot. I felt lightheaded. I had done it. I had cut the cord. As I reached my rental car, a vehicle screeched into the lot, blocking me in. It was my father's truck. My parents jumped out. They must have been alerted by a notification from the bank the moment Henderson froze the account. "Sarah!" my father roared. He marched across the asphalt, his face a mask of purple rage. People walking by the ATM stopped to watch. "What did you do?" he screamed. He got within inches of my face. "The teller just called. The account is frozen. They are talking about fraud investigation." I stood my ground. I did not flinch. I told them the truth. "Dad," I said, "I told them I did not sign that loan." "You traitor." He spat. The word was wet with saliva. "You traitor with a diploma. We built this family. We carried you. And you go in there and rat us out to a stranger? For money?" "It is not about money," I said. "It is about the fact that you stole my name." My mother pushed past him. She was not screaming. She was doing something worse. She dropped to her knees on the pavement, right there in front of the bank entrance. She covered her face with her hands and began to wail. "My own daughter," she sobbed, loud enough for the security guard to hear. "My own daughter is trying to send us to prison. After we loved her. After we gave her everything. It was a performance. It was the weaponization of shame. She knew that a crying mother looks like a victim, and a stony-faced daughter in a suit looks like a monster." I looked down at her. I saw the way she peeked through her fingers to see if people were watching. "Stop it. Mom," I said quietly. She wailed louder. "You are killing us. You are heartless." I looked at my father. He was sneering at me, waiting for me to crack, waiting for me to say, "Okay, stop. I will fix it. Just get up." But the part of me that responded to that guilt had died the day they missed my graduation. "I am not killing you," I said, my voice steady and cold. "I am just refusing to die for you." I stepped around my mother. I did not offer her a hand. I walked to my car, squeezed into the driver's seat through the gap they had left, and started the engine. My father slammed his hand against my window. "If you drive away, you are dead to us," he screamed. I put the car in reverse. I looked at him through the glass. "I was dead to you the moment I stopped being useful," I said to the empty air of the car. I backed out, leaving them in the parking lot, my father raging at a sedan, my mother weeping for an audience of strangers. I drove toward the highway, my hands gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I had the proof. I had the legal high ground. But as I merged onto the interstate, headed back to Harborwick, I knew this wasn't the end. They were cornered animals now, and animals fight hardest right before they die. The silence following the parking lot confrontation did not last. It was replaced by a noise far more insidious than my father's shouting. It was the sound of my reputation being dismantled, brick by brick, by the people who had built it. It started on a Tuesday, 3 days after I had driven away from the bank. I was in the middle of a secure briefing with the Larkwell engineering team when my personal phone, the one I had kept active only to monitor the fallout, began to vibrate against the mahogany conference table. I ignored it, then it vibrated again. And again, I glanced at the screen. It was not a family member. It was Jessica Dow, a woman I had gone to graduate school with, a brilliant data scientist who now worked in Seattle. We had not spoken in 6 months. I slid the phone into my pocket, but the unease settled in my stomach like lead. When the meeting ended, I walked back to my office and called her back. "Sarah?" Jessica answered immediately. Her voice was hushed, concerned. "Oh, thank God. You have your phone." I frowned. Why would I not have my phone? "Jess? Your mother called me," Jessica said. "She found my number through the alumni directory." "Sarah." She was crying. "She said you have been unreachable for weeks. She said you joined some kind of intense wellness group." She used the word cult. "Sarah. She said they are controlling your finances and cutting you off from everyone who loves you." I felt the blood drain from my face. They were weaponizing the secrecy of my job. They knew I could not explain what Larkwell was, so they were filling the void with a narrative of insanity. She asked if I had seen any signs of mental instability when we were in school. Jessica continued. She sounded so worried. She said they are just trying to extract you before you sign away your assets. I closed my eyes, pressing my forehead against the cool glass of my office window. It was brilliant. It was evil. But it was brilliant. If I defended myself, I sounded defensive. If I stayed silent, I looked controlled. It is not true. Jess, I said, keeping my voice steady. I have a new job. It is high security, so I cannot talk about it. My parents are angry because I stopped paying their bills. That is the whole story. Jessica paused. The silence was heavy. Okay, she said slowly. I believe you. Sarah. But she sounded very convincing. She is calling everyone. She called Mark Salling from the cohort too. I hung up. My hands were shaking. They were scorching the earth. They were ensuring that if I ever needed a reference, or a friend, or a lifeline, all anyone would see was a woman who had lost her mind. The damage control meeting with Larkwell happened 2 hours later. Graham Edison did not sit behind his desk this time. He stood by the window, looking out at the gray Atlantic, his silhouette sharp against the light. We have received inquiries, Graham said, without turning around. From whom? I asked. From a journalist at the Times, Graham said, and from a frantic woman claiming to be your mother, who somehow got the direct line to our HR director. She told him that you are being held against your will and that any contract you signed is invalid due to diminished capacity. I sat very still. I am sorry. Graham, I do not want apologies. Sarah, Graham said, turning to face me. I want containment. This is a distraction. The client we are servicing relies on absolute invisibility. A missing person drama involving one of our lead operators is the opposite of invisibility. He walked over to the table and placed a single sheet of paper in front of me. We have 2 options, he said. Option 1. He continued. You step back. We put you on administrative leave with full pay. You go to a retreat in Switzerland for 3 months. You let our legal team handle the defamation suits, and you stay entirely out of the public eye until your family exhausts themselves. You disappear for real. And option 2? I asked. You stay in the seat. Graham said. You finish the job. But you handle this personally. You end it. If you choose this, we will not shield you from the noise. You have to face them and shut it down. If you cannot, we will terminate the contract for cause. I looked at the paper. It was an amendment to my contract, offering the sabbatical. It was the safe choice. It was the choice of a victim. I thought about my mother's performance in the parking lot. I thought about the phone call to Jessica. They wanted me to hide. They wanted me to be the fragile, broken thing they could manage. If I go to Switzerland, I said, I am proving them right. I am proving that I need to be handled. Graham watched me, his face unreadable. I am not unstable, I said, and I am not a victim. I will finish the job, and I will handle my family. Graham nodded once. He took the paper back and shredded it. Good, he said. Then get back to work. That evening, Mara came to my apartment. She looked tired. She had brought takeout containers of Thai food and a thick file folder that smelled of copier toner. We found the pressure point, Mara said, opening a container of pad Thai. I sat opposite her at the kitchen island. What is it? We knew about the lien on the house, Mara said, but we didn't know the timeline. I pulled the court filings this afternoon. East Briar Lending has a mediation date set for the 12th of next month. The 12th? I asked. That is in 3 weeks. Exactly, Mara said. If your parents do not come up with $400,000 by the 12th, the bank initiates foreclosure proceedings. They lose the house. They lose the cars. They lose the status they have spent 30 years pretending to have. It all clicked into place. The desperation, the identity theft, the sudden love bombing. They were not just greedy. They were on the edge of a cliff. And there is more, Mara said. She pulled out a spreadsheet. Mark and Diane have 0 liquidity. Their retirement accounts are empty. They drained them 2 years ago to cover Aaron's inventory losses. They are functionally bankrupt. You are not just a retirement plan. Sarah, you are the only thing standing between them and total destitution. I stared at the numbers. It was a catastrophe of their own making. A house of cards built on pride and enabling. My phone rang. I looked at it. Mom. I looked at Mara. Answer it, Mara said. Put it on speaker. We need to hear what they want. I tapped the green button. "Hello? Mother?" I said. "Sarah." Her voice was different this time. It was not the wailing victim or the chirping parent. It was cold, hard, and businesslike. It was the voice of a woman who felt she had the upper hand. "We are done playing games. Sarah," she said. "I am glad to hear that." I said, "We know you are worried about your reputation." She said, "We know you do not want your fancy new employers to think you are crazy. We can fix that." "Fix it how?" I asked. "We can make the calls stop," she said. "We can tell your friends it was a misunderstanding. We can tell the blog it was a mistake. We can make the cult story go away." "And in exchange?" I asked. "In exchange, you sign a document," she said. "A beneficiary designation. If anything happens to you, the assets go to the family. And we want a position for Aaron." "A position?" I repeated. "At your firm," she said. "He needs a job. Sarah, a real one with a title. You have connections now. You get him hired as a consultant. $80,000 a year. Nothing too hard. Just something to get him back on his feet." I looked at Mara. Her jaw was dropped in silent disbelief. "So let me understand," I said. "If I give you my inheritance rights and give Aaron a fake job, you will stop telling the world I am insane? We are just looking out for each other." "Sarah," my mother said, "that is what families do. We lift each other up. If you do this, the drama stops. We can be a happy family again. It was extortion, pure and simple. I will think about it." I said, "Do not think too long," she said. "The 12th is coming up." She hung up. Mara let out a long breath. "That," Mara said, "is the most clear-cut case of extortion I have ever heard." She mentioned the 12th. I said, "She knows exactly when the clock runs out. She is terrified." Mara said, "But she is dangerous. Sarah, we need to end this. We need to present the evidence so clearly that they have no choice but to retreat. I am not just going to present it," I said. "I am going to serve it to them." I spent the next 2 days building the package. We called it the receipts package. It was a 3-ring binder, 2 inches thick. Tab 1, the credit inquiry logs, showing the attempt to open a loan in my name from their IP address. Tab 2, the emails where they impersonated me to the Larkwell payroll department. Tab 3, the forensic report on the forged guarantor signature, which Mara had rushed through a private lab. Tab 4, sworn affidavits from Jessica and 2 other classmates detailing the phone calls my mother had made, confirming the coordinated smear campaign. It was a catalog of betrayal. It was the autopsy of my childhood, but I needed one more thing. I needed to break the alliance. The 3 of them, Mark, Diane, and Aaron, operated as a unit. If I could peel one off, the structure would collapse. I called Aaron. "I want to meet." I said, "Just you? No mom? No dad?" He hesitated. "Why?" "Because I have an offer." I said, "But it is only for you." We met at a roadside diner halfway between Harborwick and Cresthaven. It was a neutral ground, smelling of burnt coffee and grease. Aaron looked terrible. His face was pale, his eyes rimmed with red. He was wearing a suit that looked slept in. The swagger was gone. He slid into the booth opposite me. He did not look at me. He looked at the menu as if it contained the answers to his life. "What is the offer?" he asked. I placed a folder on the table. It was not the receipts package. It was a different folder. "I am not giving you money." "Aaron," I said. He slammed the menu down. "Then why are we here?" "Because I can give you something else." I said, "I can give you an out." I opened the folder. "Larkwell has a program for employee families." I lied. It was actually a private arrangement I was willing to fund out of my own pocket, but he did not need to know that. It includes career placement services, legitimate headhunters who will help you find a job based on your actual skills, not your fantasies, and it includes therapy. 6 months, fully paid. "Therapy?" he scoffed. "You think I'm the one who needs therapy? You are the one hiding in a fortress." I ignored the jab. "You are drowning." "Aaron," I said, "I know about the lawsuits. I know about the bridge loan. Mom and Dad are using you as the excuse to spend money they do not have, And you are letting them because it makes you feel like a big shot. But the bill is due. I pushed the folder toward him. If you walk away from them, if you stop the lies, stop the leaks, and tell the truth about the loans, I will pay for your transition. I will help you rent an apartment. I will help you get a real job. But you have to cut them off. Aaron stared at the folder. His hand twitched toward it. For a second, I saw the brother I used to play with in the backyard, the one who wasn't broken yet. Then his face twisted. You think you are so much better than us, he spat. You think you can just buy me off with a resume workshop? I am offering you a life. Aaron, I said, a real one, not the fake one Mom and Dad built for you. He laughed. A bitter, cracking sound. It is too late for that. Sarah, you do not get it. We are in too deep. What do you mean? I asked. He leaned across the table, his voice dropping to a whisper. They are not just asking for money anymore. Sarah, they have a plan. The holiday gathering. I frowned. The annual party? That is just a potluck. Not this year. Aaron said. They rented Willowgate Hall. They invited everyone. Aunt Linda, the cousins, the neighbors, the pastor. Everyone. Why? I asked. To announce the partnership. Aaron said. They are going to stand up in front of 100 people and announce that you have agreed to fund the family trust, that you have agreed to take care of everyone. I felt a cold chill. They are going to lie? In public? They are going to trap you, Aaron said. They know you will be there because Aunt Joanne said you were coming. They are going to make the announcement, pop the champagne, and hug you. If you deny it right there, you look like a monster. You look like you are humiliating your parents in front of the whole town. They are betting on your shame. Sarah, they are betting that you will just smile and nod to avoid a scene. He looked at me, and I saw the terror in his eyes. They are crazy. Sarah, they are actually crazy, but I cannot stop them. If I go against them, I go down with them. He stood up, shoving the folder back at me. I cannot take your help, he said. I have to stick with the winning side, and they are going to win. Because you are too weak to break their hearts in public. He walked out of the diner, leaving me with the cold coffee and the revelation. They were building a stage. They were going to use social pressure to force me into a verbal contract. It was the ultimate manipulation. Be the good daughter, or be the villain. I sat there for a long time. Aaron was wrong about one thing. He thought I was weak. He thought I was still the girl who was afraid of a scene. I picked up my phone. I dialed Mara. The plan has changed. I said, What happened? Mara asked. They are throwing a party, I said, and we are going to attend. But I need you to call Aunt Joanne. We need a guest. Who? Mara asked. Elaine Mercer, I said. There was a pause on the line. Then Mara let out a low whistle. The retired judge? The one who eats prosecutors for breakfast? That is the one. I said, Joanne knows her from the garden club. Tell her we need a mediator. Tell her we need a witness who understands fraud. I hung up. I was not going to avoid the scene. I was going to steal the show. Willowgate Hall was a drafty event space on the edge of town that smelled of floor wax and stale popcorn. On the night of the gathering, it was decorated with cheap gold streamers and balloons that were already starting to sag. I arrived 20 minutes late. I wore a black dress, sharp and severe, like armor. Mara was with me, dressed in a dark suit, looking like the shark she was. We walked into the main hall. The room was buzzing with chatter. There were at least 80 people there. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Neighbors who had watched me grow up. The local pastor holding a plate of deviled eggs. The conversation stopped as we entered. 80 pairs of eyes turned to look at the prodigal daughter. Sarah! My mother's voice cut through the silence. She was standing on the small stage at the front of the room, wearing a sequined dress that caught the light. My father was beside her, looking solemn and proud. Aaron was in the shadows to the left, holding a drink with both hands. Diane rushed down the steps, arms open wide. She looked radiant. She looked like a woman who had already won. You made it, she cried. Everyone, look, Sarah is home. She hugged me. Her perfume was overpowering. I stood stiff in her embrace, my arms at my sides. She pulled back, beaming at the crowd. "Come up here, honey," she said, grabbing my hand. "We have an announcement." She pulled me toward the stage. I let her. I walked up the steps, Mara trailing quietly behind me, blending into the side of the room near the emergency exit. I stood on the stage. The lights were bright in my eyes. I looked out at the sea of faces. They were smiling. They were expectant. They had been primed for a happy ending. My father stepped up to the microphone. He tapped it twice. "Friends, family," he began, his voice booming. "Thank you all for coming. We know there have been rumors lately. We know people have been worried." He put a hand on my shoulder. His grip was heavy, possessive. "But tonight, we want to set the record straight. Our daughter Sarah has been working hard, and she has come back to us with a generous heart." The crowd murmured appreciatively. "We are so proud to announce," my mother interrupted, unable to help herself, "that Sarah has agreed to establish the Simmons Family Trust. She is dedicating her success to ensuring that this family, all of us, are taken care of for generations to come." She turned to me, tears shining in her eyes. "Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for doing the right thing." She started to clap. My father joined in. Aaron, in the corner, slowly started to clap. The room erupted. People were cheering. Aunt Linda was wiping her eyes. The pressure was physical. A wave of expectation crashing against me. Smile, nod, accept the yoke. If I spoke now, if I denied it, I would ruin the moment. I would be the cruel daughter crushing her parents' joy. I looked at my mother. She was smiling, but her eyes were hard. "Got you," her eyes said. I stepped up to the microphone. The applause died down. The room went silent, waiting for the gracious acceptance speech. I looked at the crowd. I looked at Aaron, who was looking at the floor. I looked at Mara, who gave me a single, sharp nod. Then I looked at the back of the room, where a tall, gray-haired woman in a tweed jacket had just entered, Elaine Mercer. She stood with her arms crossed, watching. I gripped the podium. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I was terrified, but the terror was different now. It wasn't the fear of being unloved. It was the fear of what I had to destroy to survive. I leaned into the mic. "Thank you all for coming," I said. My voice was steady, magnified by the speakers. My mother nodded encouragingly. "I know you are all waiting for the dessert," I said. "And I know you are all happy to hear this news." I paused. "But before we celebrate," I said, "I think it is important that we are all on the same page about what this trust actually entails." My father's smile faltered slightly. He squeezed my shoulder harder. "Sarah," he whispered, "keep it short." I pulled away from his hand. "I will speak after the dessert is served," I said to the crowd. "But first, I would like to introduce a special guest who will be helping us facilitate the evening." I pointed to the back of the room. "Please welcome Judge Elaine Mercer." The room went deadly silent. Everyone knew Elaine Mercer. You did not invite Elaine Mercer to a party unless someone was going to jail or someone was getting divorced. My mother's face went white. My father looked from me to the judge, confusion turning into panic. I stepped back from the mic. "Enjoy the cake," I said to my mother, my voice low enough that only she could hear. I walked off the stage. The trap had snapped shut. But they were the ones inside it. The air in Willowgate Hall was thick with the smell of cheap vanilla sheet cake and the heavier, suffocating scent of expectation. My mother, Diane, stood on the risers, clutching a glass of sparkling cider as if it were a scepter. She had just finished her preliminary speech, the one about family unity and the prodigal daughter returning, and the room was buzzing with a warm, fuzzy approval. I stood off to the side, near the dessert table. My hands were clasped in front of me, gripping the cold leather of my clutch so hard my fingers ached. Beside me, Mara Klein was a silent shadow, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning the room like Secret Service. Diane tapped her glass with a spoon. The sharp ding, Ding, ding cut through the chatter. "Everyone, please," Diane called out. Her voice was trembling with a joy that I knew was manufactured for the cheap seats in the back. "I have one more thing to say before we cut the cake." She looked at me. It was a look of predatory affection. "Sarah, come stand up here with us," she said. "And Aaron, you too." The crowd clapped politely. I felt a gentle shove from behind. My Aunt Linda, smiling encouragingly. "Go on, honey," she whispered. I walked up the 3 steps to the stage. I stood on my mother's left. Aaron shuffled up and stood on her right. We were the perfect tableau of the American family. The matriarch, the patriarch, the son, and the daughter. Diane put her arm around my waist. She squeezed tight, her fingernails digging into my side through the fabric of my black dress. "We have had some hard times," Diane said into the microphone. "Every family does, but tonight is about healing. Tonight is about the future." She raised her glass higher. "We are so incredibly proud to announce that Sarah has decided to step up and take her rightful place as the head of our family trust. She has agreed to use her success to save the family home and to ensure that her brother and her parents are taken care of for the rest of our lives." The room erupted. It was not just applause. It was a roar of validation. People were cheering. I saw phones come out. My cousin Jenna was recording. My Uncle Ben was holding his phone up, live streaming to Facebook. This was the trap. If I stayed silent, the video would circulate. It would be a verbal contract witnessed by the entire town. If I later refused to pay, they would play this video for a judge, for the press, for my employer. Look, she agreed. She stood there and accepted the praise. She defrauded us. Diane turned to me, her eyes wet and shining. "Say a few words." "Sarah," she urged, shoving the microphone into my hand. "Tell them how happy you are to be home." I took the microphone. It was heavy. The room quieted down, waiting for the tearful acceptance, the humble brag, the checkbook opening. I looked at Mark. He was nodding at me, a stern warning in his eyes. "Do not embarrass us." I looked at Aaron. He was staring at his shoes, sweating. I looked at the crowd, 80 people who thought I was a hero because I was about to be a victim. I took a deep breath. "I am not here to save this family," I said. The silence that followed was instant and absolute. It was the sound of a record scratching. Diane's smile froze. She leaned in, her voice a hiss that the microphone barely picked up. "What are you doing? Stick to the script." I stepped away from her, moving to the center of the stage. I kept my voice calm, level, and loud. "I am not here to save this family." I repeated, "I am here to state 3 truths that have been buried under lies for too long." Mark stepped forward, reaching for the mic. "Sarah, you are tired. You have had too much wine." I pulled the mic away. "I have not had a drop to drink." "Dad," I turned back to the crowd. "Truth number 1, I said. My parents did not miss my graduation because of an emergency. They missed it to attend a party for a business venture that they knew was failing. I sat in a stadium with 3 empty seats while they celebrated a lie." A murmur rippled through the room. Aunt Linda's hand went to her mouth. "Truth number 2, I continued, my voice gaining strength. My identity was used without my permission to secure loans that I did not authorize. My signature was forged on legal documents to cover debts that belonged to my parents and my brother." Diane let out a loud, theatrical sob. "She is lying. She is having a breakdown." I ignored her. "Truth number 3, I said, I will not fund fraud. I will not pay off a lien that was secured through identity theft. And I will not sign a contract that forces me to pay for love that should have been free." Mark lunged for me then. He grabbed my arm, his fingers bruising. "That is enough," he shouted. "You ungrateful brat. You are airing our dirty laundry in front of the neighbors? You are humiliating us." I wrenched my arm free. "I am not humiliating you." "Mark," I said, "I am exposing you." I looked toward the back of the room. "Judge Mercer?" I called out. Elaine Mercer stood up. She had been sitting quietly near the exit, a untouched plate of cake on the table in front of her. She walked forward, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. The crowd parted for her like the Red Sea. In a small town, a retired judge has more authority than God. I asked Elaine Mercer to be here tonight as a neutral witness. I said to the room. Elaine stopped at the foot of the stage. She looked up at my parents. Her face was grim. Diane, Mark, Elaine said. Her voice was gravel and authority. I suggest you let her speak. Diane looked at Elaine, then at the crowd. She switched tactics instantly. Elaine, you know how Sarah is? Diane pleaded, tears streaming down her face. She has been under so much stress. She is confused. She thinks we are her enemies. I am not confused. I said, I signaled to Mara. Mara stepped forward from the shadows. She was holding the receipts package. It was a thick black binder. She walked over to Aunt Linda, who was sitting in the front row, and placed it in her hands. Then she handed a second binder to Uncle Ben. What is this? Aunt Linda whispered. Open it to tab 3. Linda, I said from the stage. Linda opened the binder. She adjusted her glasses. That is a forensic report on a guarantor agreement for Simmons Home Services, LLC. I said, it compares the signature on the loan to my actual signature. It concludes, with 99% certainty, that the signature was forged by someone with access to my handwriting samples. Linda looked up, her face pale. This says Mark signed it. Mark turned a violent shade of purple. That is fake. She typed that up. Judge Mercer stepped onto the stage. She did not need a microphone. I have reviewed the preliminary evidence. Mark, Elaine said, she stood between me and my father, and I have advised Sarah that she has grounds for criminal charges. The room gasped. The word criminal hung in the air like smoke. Charges? Diane shrieked. For what? For trying to keep a roof over our heads? For trying to help our son? Elaine turned to Diane. For identity theft. Diane. For wire fraud. For coercion. And let me be very clear. Trying to force your daughter to accept a debt in a public setting like this? That is evidence of extortion. If you continue this performance, you are not just looking at bankruptcy, you are looking at prison time. Diane stared at Elaine. She looked at the faces of her neighbors. She saw the judgment turning against her. She saw the phones that were still recording, now capturing her downfall instead of her victory. She panicked. It wasn't me, Diane cried out. She pointed a shaking finger at the back of the room. It was Tessa. Every head turned. Tessa Morrow, Aaron's girlfriend, was standing by the punch bowl, looking terrified. Tessa told us to do it, Diane shouted. She works at the law firm. She said Sarah had big money coming in. She said if we just held on, Sarah would pay for everything. She gave us the forms. She told us how to fake the notary stamp. Tessa's eyes went wide. She dropped her plastic cup. Red punch splattered on the floor. You liar! Tessa screamed. She marched toward the stage, her face twisted with indignation. You told me to do it, Diane. You sent me the text messages. You said, get the forms. Aaron deserves a chance. I have the texts on my phone right now. Tessa pulled her phone out of her purse and held it up to the crowd. She told me exactly which documents to pull. Tessa yelled. She said Sarah was a resource that needed to be harvested. Harvested. The word echoed in the hall. It was a cold, agricultural word. You harvest corn, you harvest wheat. You do not harvest a daughter. Aaron, who had been standing silent and trembling, suddenly made a sound. It was a low, guttural growl. He threw his glass of scotch against the wall. It shattered, startling everyone. Shut up! Aaron screamed. He turned to me. His face was wet with sweat and tears. You think you are so perfect, don't you? Aaron yelled at me. You stand there with your lawyer and your judge and your $5 million a month, looking down on us. You think you are better than me because you got out? I did not get out. Aaron, I said quietly, I was pushed out. I hate you, Aaron screamed. I hate that you made it and I didn't. Then he spun around to face our parents. And I hate you too. Mark stepped back, shocked. Aaron, son, calm down. No, Aaron yelled. You told me it would work. You told me to leverage the house. You told me to take the inventory loan. You said, don't worry. Sarah will pay for it eventually. Sarah owes us. He looked at the crowd, his arms spread wide. That was the business plan, Aaron shouted, his voice cracking. The business plan was Sarah. We bet everything on her feeling guilty enough to write a check, and now I'm going to lose everything because you two are greedy idiots. He collapsed onto the stage floor, burying his face in his hands, sobbing. The silence that followed was heavy and final. The spell was broken. The image of the happy family was not just cracked, it was pulverized. I looked at my parents. Mark was staring at the wall, refusing to meet anyone's eyes. Diane was weeping, but no one was rushing to comfort her. Aunt Linda was reading the binder, turning the pages slowly, horrified. I stepped up to the microphone one last time. I looked at Mark and Diane. I have a plane to catch, I said, but before I go, I am offering you one last deal. Diane looked up, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I am not giving you money, I said, not a dime. The hope vanished. But, I continued, I am willing to walk away from the police station tonight without filing the report. I am willing to let you deal with the bank and the foreclosure on your own, as civil matters, without a criminal record attached to your names. I looked at Elaine Mercer. She nodded slowly. On 3 conditions, I said. 1, I said, you sign a document tonight, witnessed by Judge Mercer, admitting that I am not the guarantor on any of your loans. You release me from the debt formally. 2, I continued, you never contact my employer, my friends, or my colleagues again. If I hear one whisper of a rumor, I file the charges. 3, I said, we are done. Do not call me. Do not write me. Do not show up at my house. If you need to speak to me, you speak to Mara. I waited. Mark looked at me. His eyes were full of hate. He hated me because I had beaten him. He hated me because I had seen him. You are heartless. Mark spat. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just finally learned how to use my head. I turned to Mara. Give them the papers. Mara walked onto the stage and laid the settlement agreement on the podium. She handed Mark a pen. He stared at it. He looked at the crowd. He saw the judgment in their eyes. He saw that he had no allies left. He signed it. He shoved the pen at Diane. She signed it. Her hand shaking so badly the pen tore the paper. I took the document. I checked the signatures. I handed it to Elaine Mercer. Thank you. Judge, I said. I turned and walked down the steps. Sarah, Diane called out. Her voice was thin, desperate. Where are you going? I did not stop. I did not look back. I walked down the center aisle of the hall. I passed Aunt Linda, who looked at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, I am so sorry. Sarah. I passed the neighbors who had known me since I was 5. They parted to let me through, looking at me with a mixture of awe and fear. I walked out the double doors into the cool night air. I expected to feel triumphant. I expected a cinematic swell of music. I expected to feel like a winner. But as the door closed behind me, muting the sound of my mother's sobbing, I just felt cold. I felt a shaking, rattling relief, like a fever breaking. I walked to my rental car. Mara followed me. You did good. Sarah, Mara said softly. I leaned against the hood of the car, taking deep gulps of air. Is it over? I asked. Legally? Yes, Mara said. Emotionally? That is up to you. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a message on the secure Larkwell app. Offer finalized. The message read, full compensation package approved. However, legal has added a mandatory rider. Protective insulation clause. You will be required to maintain a permanent legal buffer between yourself and any immediate family members for the duration of your employment. Welcome to the team. I stared at the screen. I had won. I had the job, I had the money, I had the freedom, but the contract was a reminder. I wasn't just Sarah Simmons anymore. I was a high-value target. And the people who had taught me that I needed to be protected were the people who were supposed to protect me. I got into the car. I placed the phone on the passenger seat. I looked back at the hall one last time. I could see the silhouettes of people moving in the windows. They were still in there, picking over the wreckage of the evening. My parents were in there, probably already spinning a new story, probably already blaming someone else. It didn't matter. They were a story I was no longer writing. I started the engine, I put the car in gear, and I drove away, into the dark, quiet road that led to the rest of my life. Thank you for listening to this story. Writing Sarah's journey has been an intense experience. We often think of revenge as something loud and violent, but sometimes the greatest revenge is simply removing your consent to be abused. It is about standing in a room full of people who expect you to fold, and choosing to stand tall instead. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you in a bustling city like New York, or a quiet town like Briar Glen? Please let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of justice, betrayal, and the complex dynamics of family, please subscribe to Revenge Stories. And finally, I want to hear your thoughts. Did Sarah make the right choice by walking away without pressing charges? Or do you think she should have let the law handle her parents? Share your perspective in English in the comments. I read every single one. Until next time.